Douglas Tappin. I am the writer, composer, and one of the producers of I Dream, the musical.
This musical is your dream, and it's a mighty big dream, if I may say so, since you basically conceived it over back at home in London, and now you're bringing it here to the United States. Let's start at the beginning, when the seed of this dream started. Do you remember?
The seed of this dream started before I knew it was the seed of this particular dream. Very, very many years ago, I saw a theatrical production in London, Les Miserables. And I remember when I left that production, walking out with this indefinite sense of my life was meant to do something like that. I had no idea what the story was going to be at that stage. I didn't really even take very seriously the thought that I could do something like that. And I'm trying to remember exactly when that was. That would have been in the 80s, very early shows of that. And searching for a story idea led me through some other productions. I've written a theatrical musical theatre production based on the life of Moses called Deliverer. And the second significant piece that I wrote was called King, not based on Martin Luther King Jr.'s life, but instead based on the life of King David. And the beginnings of the seed for this piece, which is now I Dream, began when I was introducing the King piece to people having moved from London to Atlanta in about 2004. And people began to respond to the title King by saying, you can't produce a piece called King in this city. And my initial response was, well, why not? And I think it may be the third or fourth time that someone said that I began to take seriously the whole thought that this was King City, in that sense, that there was history here far greater than I'd understood. Because the civil rights movement, Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks, places like Montgomery and Birmingham, Selma, and so on and so forth had been largely unknown to me. I was aware of them, but I didn't know the detail. And the detail had begun to be pieced together since I'd moved here in 2004. And I found myself about 2006 in this place where I had this acute awareness of Martin Luther King Jr., who he was, what he had done, how significant he was. And then suddenly with that came this sense that, oh no, the reason I might happen to have moved from London to here might be because this is the piece I'm meant to write. Which is an unusual thought to try and wrestle with when the two stories prior to that had been biblical stories, and so there was some wrestle with, can I really write about Martin Luther King Jr.? And then you begin to ponder, well, if I wrote about him, how difficult would that be? What would it be like? Would I find the support I needed? Would I be able to perform this thing and produce it in Atlanta? Because with the compulsion and the sense that I had to do this came the sense also that Atlanta was the place that it was meant to begin.
What was the conversation when you talked to your wife about uprooting and moving to Atlanta? Because those conversations between husband and wife are very interesting, when it comes to making a major move that affects the entire family.
My wife has been a backbone. She was the one who originally dragged me to theatre. And when I say dragged, that meant she'd continued a tradition that my own mother had started. I was a reluctant attender at theatrical productions. She had seen the piece that I'd written, the Deliverer piece, in London in 2003. And she'd been moved by it. And so, and she had supported me through the 3 years of writing that. And this wild idea that I could write a piece that people would come to see, that would move people, that would be good, had gone from being some figment of my imagination and craziness to something quite serious. And I think she had agreed with me that piece had been written whilst I'd been doing other things. I had working a 60-hour job as an attorney at the same time, so that had been largely written in evenings and weekends. And we both looked at each other and said, what would happen if you did this and nothing but this? And so the trip to Atlanta was largely supportive. The actual words I probably won't repeat because it definitely wasn't a what the heck. But it may have been I hadn't expected my life would go in this direction. But we'd come to Atlanta during the year of the Olympics. And it was the first time I'd ever been in the country outside of England where, again, just an unusual sense that I didn't understand. I believed that maybe this could be a place I could live. And coming back with her, saying to her, let's just go see what it's like. Let's look at places to live. Let's learn to drive on the other side of the road. Let's work out what the schooling situation is, all those practical things. And through that process, she began to believe in, I suppose it's a faith journey, to set out and do something without any definite sense of how that thing would resolve itself. But trusting in me, and probably more than that, thank goodness, trusting in God to work it out, even if her husband was crazy.